السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله والحمد لله حمدا كثيرا طيبا مباركا فيه حمدا يليق بجلال وجهه وبعظيم سلطانه، وصلى الله على خير خلقه محمد الصادق الأمين المبعوث رحمة للعالمين، وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين، وعلى أصحابه الغر الميامين، ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. اللهم اكتبنا منهم. آمين. My dear brothers and sisters, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for this opportunity to gather purely for study and learning together the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and with the intention not just of gaining information but of taking lessons and applying those lessons in our lives. That is the main purpose for which this book was revealed. No one else has been given this favor. No other nation can claim that they have the true word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with them. They were given and they lost it, or it was taken from them. This is the only one which Allah Himself chose to protect, His final revelation. And if we don't value it, if we don't show ta'zeem, and we don't have love for it, then Allah can take it from us also. And it doesn't have to be taken away physically. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can take away from us the understanding of this book and the application in our lives. So whenever we gather to study the Quran, remember that this is a very special privilege. We are not doing each other a favor. We are not doing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a favor. This is His favor that He allows us to study His book. We've been studying Surah Yusuf. And those who were with us from the beginning, if you remember, Surah Yusuf was revealed at what time? In the Seerah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Yes, Meccan period. What more than that?
11th Hijri, after Amul Hazn.
In the Amul Huzn, which is the year of sadness, the year of sorrow, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam faced the biggest challenges of his life. He had two great losses: the loss of our mother Khadija radiallahu anha and the loss of Abu Talib. And then he went to Taif, where he was stoned. So this was the low point of his prophethood. At that point, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Surah Yusuf to give him consolation. His ummah is also facing a low point in their existence, where millions of our brothers and sisters, children, are being starved. Electricity is cut off, water is cut off, food is cut off. Homes are being demolished. Reminds me of a low point in the Ummah's history, when food was cut off and water was cut off from none other than the beloved of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his grandson, Sayyidina Hussein. The same thing happened. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept this gathering and whatever good whatever thawab, whatever rewards that it deserves, that may it be given to the suffering people, our brothers and sisters in Palestine. Ameen. We finished at ayah number 29 last time, which is where Yusuf alayhi salam has been falsely accused of attacking or trying to have an illicit relationship with the wife of the Aziz, the chief minister of Egypt, whereas the case was completely opposite. The Aziz comes to the door. She makes an accusation that this is what this slave of ours was trying to do. And then there's a family member of hers who said, well, look at the shirt, look at the circumstantial evidence, which will tell you who is guilty, whether it's torn from the front or torn from the back. And as you know, they came to a conclusion that she was the one who was wrong, and that Yusuf alayhi salam, the most kareem of people, the noble of people, the son of a Nabi, the son of another Nabi, and the great-grandson of Khalilullah, the most noble of people of lineage, was innocent. And then an interesting thing happened. The Aziz didn't seem too upset about this whole thing. He just said, don't talk about this to anybody. I don't want this scandal getting around. So he told Yusuf alayhi salam, don't mention this to anyone. And what did he say to his wife? He put her in a group of people. She said, you women, your plots are great. Means you all women are the same. And ask for forgiveness. That's it. So this gives us an idea of the social system that existed at that time in Egypt among the elite, because now you're talking about the rich and the powerful. And in all times in history, it has been that the rich and the powerful in these social circles, they have a fake relationship. They meet each other, but they hate each other. They are jealous of each other. They have greed. They want what the others have of power and so on and so forth. So all of their relationships are superficial. They will visit each other, but they will talk about each other behind their backs. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us about this, that this was the background, and there was a scandal. There were only 4 people there. The Aziz was not going to get this word out. Yusuf alayhi salam, honorable, he was not going to talk about it. The wife of the Aziz probably would not talk about it, although we can't be sure. And there was one other witness, but somehow the word got out. And once this scandal gets out, then it goes from tongue to tongue. Now, unfortunately, that's a disease that we all suffer from. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who has created us and made our own gender characteristics, says that this is more common among the women. This is Allah's statement. And elsewhere also he says that, because he says, Kaida kunnadim, this is your plotting. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on to tell us what happens. So the point I was trying to make is that in these circles that sometimes we look up to, the circles of the rich and the famous and the powerful, we get impressed by it. They are marked by jealousies and greed and scandal and vying for dunya. Dunya is mal and jah, wealth and position. The minister's primary concern seemed to be that he wanted his reputation protected. He didn't care what his wife was doing. Right? He didn't have what is called ghira, that how can another man be with my wife? Okay, that healthy, normal spousal jealousy. So his concern was, let this not get out. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. This is where we start, ayah number 30. وقال نسوة في المدينة امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه قد شغفها حبا إن لنراها في ضلال مبين. Which means, and some of the elite women of the city said, the wife of the Aziz, the chief minister, this is the first time he's been called Al-Aziz, before that it was the man from Egypt, is seeking to seduce her young slave. Indeed, he has penetrated her heart, and she loves him violently. And verily, we see her in plain error. This is just plain wrong. Clearly, she has gone astray. So now they've become holier than thou. But, oh, look at this woman. She is going after this young man. This is clearly wrong. Now, if they truly thought it was wrong, they should have kept quiet about it. This is just hearsay. When you hear something, you don't convey it till you have proof of it, even though it happened. Okay? It came through somebody, maybe some servants talk to each other, talk to some other people's servants, and the slaves talk to each other, and the news got out. So, what would you call this? One is called gossip, right? Which sometimes we are guilty. Backbiting, you're talking about somebody behind the back. Sometimes it can be slander, and sometimes it is what is called namima, all of which are considered kaba'ir, major sins from afatul lisan, the sins that the tongue commits, which are considered major, for which either Jahannam is promised or a punishment. For example, if you make a false accusation about the morality of a woman and you can't bring 4 witnesses, you have a had. You have 80 lashes. Okay? So these are major sins. So what is backbiting? Everybody knows, right? What is backbiting? Are you telling the truth or are you telling lies? You're telling the truth. Something did happen. But backbiting means you're talking about somebody who's not there, saying something that they would not like said in their absence. Okay? Even though it is true. And that's called ghiba. Now suppose it was a lie, it didn't even happen, that takes it up a notch in sin. And that's called buhtan, slander, making a false accusation. And then there is causing problem between people. Brother Salim, do you know what so-and-so said about you in that gathering? Then what your response is? Do you know what he said about you in that gathering? Carrying tales from people, that's called namima. For all of these, it is said the person who indulges in this, doesn't do tawbah, is going to Jahannam. So these are very serious things that we should know about, because we take things lightly. Once the session finishes, you're taking refreshments, you have to talk, you start talking about things, and sooner or later, if you talk too much, you will start talking about people. And then the filters go down, and then you're not careful. So it is best to keep a lock on the mouth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us 2 locks on the tongue, the lips and the teeth. Keep it under control. So this is what happened. So they said something interesting. They said that his love has penetrated her heart. Shaghafaha hubban means she is consumed by ishq for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has recorded in the Quran for eternity the conversations that took place. So there's got to be something important about it, that people can fall in so-called love or, lust, whatever, to the degree where they lose all their moral compass. One time, Sayyidina Abdullah ibn Abbas was at Hajj, the great companion, was at Hajj, and he saw a young man completely emaciated, means skin and bones only, being carried for tawaf, like somebody who is terminally ill, who's going to die, like the end cancer patient. So he said, what happened to him? They said, he suffers from a condition. He said, what is his condition? They said, ishq. He fell in love with someone who refused to have any part of him, and that consumed him, that he stopped eating and drinking, and he has no interest in anything, and he's become skin and bone. So we brought him for Hajj. So on Arafah, Abdullah ibn Abbas radiallahu anh, knowing who he was, spent most of his dua, Ya Allah, na'udhu bika, I seek your protection from a heart that falls in this disease of ishq for someone where I lose my moral compass. So just on the side, just to tell you that sometimes physical attractions, things like that, can lead to somebody's undoing. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, because both of those are relevant in here. What the Aziz's wife did and what these women are doing. Anybody know what that hadith is? That I guarantee you Jannah if you guarantee me what?
What is between the jaws and what's between the legs?
Jazakallah khair. You guarantee me two things. Means what is between your jaw means tongue, what you say. And what is between your legs, your private parts, means no illicit activity or relationship, and guarding your tongue. You guarantee me those, that you will keep them under control, I guarantee you Jannah. And the reverse is also true. You have to think of the opposite. If guarantee of Jannah is for these two, if you do the opposite, the destination is the opposite. So essentially, these women are now having a field day because they are tearing down one of the people in their own social circle of the elite. Oh, look what she did. فلما سمعت بمكرهن أرسلت إليهن وأعتدت لهن متكئا وآتت كل واحدة منهن سكينا وقالت اخرج عليهن فلما رأينه أكبرنه وقطعن أيديهن وقلنا حاش لله ما هذا بشرا إن هذا إلا ملك كريم. So when she, this is the wife of the Aziz, the word got to her that this is the talk of the town, this is what the women are saying. When she heard about their gossip and the accusation, she said, let me take care of them. This is how it works in the societies. So what did she do? She sent them all an invitation. Come to my house. We are having a party, a banquet. Now imagine, she's got something up her sleeve. She wants to prove something. So what she did, she prepared a great banquet for them. And of course, they must have all come all dressed up and made up and perfumed. And they are more interested in coming there. Why? They want to see Yusuf themselves. What is this? Okay. So they are coming with that in mind. So obviously they're going to be all dressed up the best way they can because they want to see what's going on. So what she did was she prepared a big meal. She gave each one of them a knife. Muttaqina, so there were couches put out, so they were reclining, relaxed, and a lot of foods and fruit. And she said, each one, she gave them a knife. Then she said to Yusuf alayhi salam, who was not there in that gathering, come out. He commanded him because she is the owner. Then when they, the women, saw him, they were so stunned by his beauty. They were mesmerized, they were hypnotized. And in their amazement and admiration, they're looking at him, they're cutting their fruit, and they're cutting their hands. And they are oblivious of the fact that they're not even feeling the pain because they're just amazed at him. And they said, good God, how perfect is Allah. This cannot be a human being. This is none other than a noble angel. Now, what must have happened when the fingers and hands got cut? Of course, the wife of the Aziz planned it. She knew what was going to happen. So she is on the top of the world. She said, I got you. Okay, you're talking about me. But what must have happened practically? Suppose there are all these women who've had their hands cut and they're bleeding. Somebody has to come and bandage them. So there's one slave there, Yusuf. He must be going, and they must all be hitting on him at that time, trying to show what, I'm also here and I'm also here. Just imagine this scene. And he, being how pure he is, he doesn't see it. He's just doing his job. He ignores all of that. In general, when a person sins, like she committed a sin, what should you do when you commit a sin? Do you want it to become a scandal? Do you want to get out in the community? No. So there are three ways of controlling that. One is you stop doing what you did, and you do tawbah, you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's forgiveness. Number two, you don't talk about your sin. You don't go and brag to people, I did this, I did this. You keep quiet. And thirdly, you don't look for faults and mistakes of others. You don't try and expose others, because when you expose others' mistakes, Allah will expose yours. So those are the things, when we see something, we should cover the faults. Allah has put a sitr. He has put a cover. Each one of us knows what we have done in our lives, and Allah knows. And it is a sitr that we sit here and we respect each other. We don't know what we have done, only Allah knows. Now if Allah were to remove this sitr, maybe nobody would talk to each other. So if Allah has put this cover, leave it. In fact, we should ask. So that's what she should have done, but she didn't. She wanted to get even with them. Now, why did they say he's an angel? It was just his... They've never seen an angel. Of course, he had beauty unsurpassed, because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam saw Yusuf alayhi salam. How? In the Mi'raj. He saw Yusuf alayhi salam, and he said about him sallallahu alayhi wasallam that when Allah created beauty, He gave half of all the beauty to Yusuf alayhi salam, and the rest of it to the rest of the creation. So the scholars have said what that means is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam alayhi salam with his own hands. Ahsani taqweem, the best form. And of all of the beauty of Adam alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave half to Yusuf and said half is for the rest of your children. So something that we can't imagine. We'll see Yusuf alayhi salam inshallah. So that's one. Two, they noticed that he is so noble that he is not tempted by anything, he is not affected by anything, he is so pure and innocent that in spite of all that they are doing, their seduction, he has no clue, he is completely innocent, like an angel. So that's his, so they recognized his inner beauty also, not just his external beauty. Because when we think of Yusuf alayhi salam, his beauty, It was not just his external beauty, because you can have a lot of externally beautiful people who are completely corrupt, who you don't want to have anything to do with. So he was internally beautiful, and that's even more important than external beauty. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has recorded all of this, not just to make it a juicy story, but to warn us about the dangers of these elite societies where moral corruption prevails, and that we should stay away and protect ourselves from such an environment. In today's age, we call them lifestyles of the rich and the famous, of the people of showbiz, and people look up to them, So, and they know everything about them. Who is doing what with who? It's not our business. As Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam teaches us, from the best of a person's Islam is to stay away from ma la yani, what does not concern them. Tarku, leave what does not concern. Okay. If you only knew what goes on internally in these circles and in the lives of these people, they have the most miserable of lives. They have no peace, they have no tranquility, they have jealousies. You don't know, you can't trust your own wife, your own husband, what they are doing, and that's what it is. That's why they are drinking and they are doing drugs and they're committing suicides and all of that. So this is just, we should not be impressed by people who have these things, because it's a life of stress, of misery, of deceit, and every possible corruption. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the next step, what happens? قالت, now the wife of the Aziz takes the stage. قالت فذلكن الذين لمتنني فيه. And this is the one whose love you blamed me, you criticized me for it. This is the one. وَلَقَدْ رَاوَدتُّهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَاسْتَعْصَمَ وَلَئِنْ لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَيَكُونًا مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. Now, everybody is in the same boat. So she has nothing to hide. All filters removed. So now she comes out and says, do you know? So this is what you were telling me. Now look at your situation. Yes, I did it. She confesses. I tried to seduce him. I tried to attack him. And he pulled back. He resisted. She makes a clear admission because she has no fear. They can't talk anymore because they are all in the same boat. Now look at the next step she goes. He said, he firmly refused and resisted. In other words, he said no to me. Now the egos kick in. And if he does not do what I order him to do, he will most certainly, la yusjananna, that's the structure, is that absolutely, without a doubt, he will be imprisoned. He will be thrown into a prison. And he would be made saghirin. He's humiliating me. I will have him humiliated. I'm going to have him disgraced. So, again, there is no haya. There is no guilt. This is the woman who was told by a husband, ask for forgiveness. Does it look like she is doing tawbah? No, she wants what she wanted. In fact, now she's saying, she's not just saying what she did. She says, he will do whatever I want. Now that's left open. Whatever other ideas she has. Now in this, there is partnership of the other women, which is implied because the next ayahs will come. So again, no remorse, no concern about the husband, only her lust. And all the other women are also, they want part of the action. So Yusuf alayhi salam is being treated as an object. Obviously an object to be used for their personal pleasures. Now the test for Yusuf alayhi salam is turned up more. There was one woman, beautiful woman. Now there are many women. And now what is the alternative? You are going to prison, and whatever else humiliation is coming with that. Means you're going to be thrown. And the prisons there were not the prisons we have here, 5-star prisons where you have basketball. They were dungeons, underground. Okay? So he was going to go into another dark well. A young boy had come out of one dark well, probably still suffered trauma from that well where his brothers had thrown him. And now he's being threatened that this is what's going to happen to you again. Qala. What is his response? Just remember, this is a young man. He's not a mature adult like us at this age. We've seen the world. It's a young kid who's essentially homeless. He's been taken away from his parents. And he's been treated as a slave, and then this. And now this challenge. It would be very easy to yield. I don't want to go to prison. قال رب السجن أحب إلي مما يدعونني إليه. قال, he said, Rabbi. First time also when the woman wanted, first thing, he remembered his Rabb. Same thing. He said, Rabbi السجن أحب is more beloved to me. I prefer prison to me, Milayya, mimma yad'unani ilay, to what they invite me to. Look at the choice of his words. He doesn't even use the word. He could have said, Ya Allah, prison, I prefer to go to prison rather than commit zina. He is so pure, he doesn't even want to use that word. He said, what they invite me to. This is the level of his haya. He cannot get the word zina even on his tongue. This is the beauty and purity of Yusuf alayhi salam. وَإِلَّا تَصْرِفْ عَنِّي كَيْدَهُنَّ أَصْبُ إِلَيْهِنَّ وَأَكُمْ مِنَ الْجَاهِلِينَ. And then he asks, he said, and if you do not remove their plotting from me, what they are plotting and what they are scheming, he is strong, but he doesn't rely on his strength. He said, Ya Allah, I might fall into that trap. I might be tempted. Some circumstances might come where I have no choice. So I seek your protection that you remove their plotting and planning from me. Because I may incline towards them, and then I would be akum minad jahilin. I may become people who are ignorant. Now, what is ignorant? For us, most people, ignorant means uneducated. This is ignorant of who is my Rabb. That I forgot at that moment that Allah is watching. So, this is what he says. So Yusuf alayhi salam has limited choices. He has no social standing there, like he has some connections. He's a slave. And these women are all powerful. They are threatening him. So when you are overpowered, who do you turn to? And that's what we are talking about. When we are overpowered, immediately you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's what he does. And he shows his faith and his uprightness, wanting to do only the right thing for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he does not have the arrogance to trust himself and his abilities. He says, Ya Allah, if you don't remove this from me, I might fall victim to this. And then I would be lost as an ignorant person. So he asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for an escape route. Ya Allah, save me somehow, even if it is a prison. So the lesson is, stay away from contacts and friendships of indecent and sinful people where there is no haya, no matter how wealthy or influential they are, because being alone is better than being in that company. And having a good suhbah is better than being alone. Good companionship is very, very important for us. فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ فَاسْتَجَابَ لَهُ رَبُّهُ. The structure is his Rabb responded to him. But Allah puts lahu, to him first, which tells him exclusive to Yusuf alayhi salam, Allah responded to his dua. So to him his Lord responded, answered his prayer. فَصَرَفَ أَنْهُ كَيْدَهُنَّ, and turned away from him their kaid, their plotting. إِنَّهُ هُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, because indeed he is the one who hears and he knows. He was hearing all the conversations because they are all recorded here. He hears all conversations, conversations that we say out loud, that we whisper, conversations we have in our hearts. Allah is Sami. He hears all of those. Alim, he knows everything. Past, present, future, everything is known to him. So Allah knows. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, heard his dua and said, Allah responded to him and removed that thing from him. Now one would think, if Allah wanted to remove that thing, what would be the easiest thing to do? Expose all the women to the people, then something would happen. But Allah allows Yusuf alayhi salam to be sent to prison unjustly, and he calls it that Allah responded to his dua. Now you think about that. Who would think that spending 7 years in prison is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? But remember that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always protects, and He extends His hifz, His protection for those who uphold His commands. Whoever upholds the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and guards the prohibitions, Allah will protect internally in his heart from sinful thoughts and sinful things, and externally from things. This is that famous hadith of Abdullah ibn Abbas, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said to him, Ya ghulam, O young man, ihfadillah yahfad. Protect Allah and Allah will protect you. What that means is protect the commandments, the awamir, and the nahi, the prohibitions of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He protected him and He gave him an out from this challenge by allowing him to be put in prison unjustly for many years. Allah does things in unique ways. Nobody else would have said, okay, we'll bail you out. How? By putting you in prison. But this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does things. Now, suppose, we know the rest of the story. Suppose Yusuf alayhi salam did not go into prison. What would have happened?
He wouldn't have met the two boys.
He wouldn't have met those two boys. Nobody there would have known that he has the power to interpret dreams. When the famine came, he would still be sitting in the prison. When the famine came, nothing would be done. Thousands of people would die of starvation. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put him in prison, made certain sequence, certain dominoes to fall, ultimately leading him out of the prison, taking him to a place of power, making him the Secretary of Treasury, and saving thousands of people from dying starvation, from going into prison. But when you look at it on the surface, it looks like great injustice. What a terrible position to be in. ثم بدا لهم من بعد ما رأوا الآيات ليسجننه حتى حين. Then it appeared to them. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says lahum, doesn't say lahunna, the women. Means the husbands found out. Why? Everybody finds the wife's hands cut. What happened? So the words got to the husband. Now the husband said, we need to do damage control. We can't let this get out because we'll all be disgraced. So they got together. ثُمَّ بَدَا لَهُمْ. It appeared to them. Whom means men and women, the decision makers, the elite of the society. What? رَآهُ الْآيَاتِ. Even though they saw the ayat, the signs. What signs? Of his innocence. Even that she had, with her own tongue, admitted all of this. What did they decide to do? What appeared that this is appropriate? لَيَسْجُنُنَّهُ حَتَّى حِينٍ. Put him in prison for a period of time. Obviously, he was not going to go there for 3 months, because if he got out 3 months later, something would get exposed again. So they said, throw him in prison. He's sort of dispensable. Nobody is a slave. Who cares? So he goes to prison. So this was the safest course to stop the scandal from spreading, and blame the innocent and the ordinary slave and say he was punished. So they preserved that false reputation of being elite and noble families and wives and all of that. So was there injustice done? Of course, there's great injustice, But just remember, if injustice is done to you while you are doing the right thing and you're guarding the rights of Allah, sooner or later, Allah will turn things around. That is Allah. As long as you are doing the right thing. If you do the wrong things, then all bets are off. So under no matter what circumstances we are exposed to, we do not retaliate for something wrong with wrong. If somebody is doing dhulm, we don't do dhulm. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, idfa billati hiya ahsan. Repel evil with good. We have to stick to what our Sharia says, including rules of battle. Okay. So, if you're doing the right thing and you see terrible things happening to you, don't lose hope. Have patience. Wait for the faraj from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Wait from that opening where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's great plan will start to unfold. And just remember, the harder the difficulty you were subjected to, the greater the ease will come. So now you have, in the darkness of this dungeon, a light. Yusuf alayhi salam. Person of pure, noble akhlaq. His akhlaq, his values do not change no matter what environment he is in. Whether it's in the prison, whether it's in the palaces, anywhere he is. It doesn't even change when he becomes the minister himself. Holds fast to his values. That's what the lesson for us is. That we have to hold fast to our values of our deen, no matter what environment we are put in. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says what? وَاعْتَصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. Hold on fast to the rope of Allah. Together, all of you Muslims, and be not divided. What is the rope of Allah? The Quran and the Sunnah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, difficult times will come in the end. He said, hold on to it by your molar teeth. Like you grip something with your teeth, don't let it go. The deen, the values of your deen. And we are going through challenges. Not just physical challenges of war, but challenges against the faith, challenges of values, challenges of the so-called liberal system of society where anything goes. You can be whatever you want. And not talk about in a noble way. in an evil way. Now the scene changes. We go from the palaces into the dungeons, into the prison. ودخل معه السجن فتيان قال أحدهما إني أراني أعصر خمرا وقال الأخرى إني أراني أحمل فوق رأسي خبزا تأكل الطير منه نبئنا بتأويله إنا نراك من المحسنين. So, when he is thrown in prison, two other people young men are being, probably slaves, being thrown in the prison. So they meet up there, and one of them says to him, he's never met him before, he says to him, I saw in a dream that I'm pressing wine, I'm making wine. And the other one said, oh, I had a dream too, that I'm carrying bread on my head and birds are eating from it. Okay, you had a dream. Now what happened? No, they tell this dream to Yusuf alayhi salam, a stranger, and they say, tell us about the interpretation of these dreams. How do they know? How do they know that he can interpret dreams? That's only known to Yaqub alayhi salam. Even his brothers don't know that. Inna naraka min al muhsinin. Because we see something special in you. You seem like muhsin, noble, beautiful. Noor, you have something special. And these people are seeing it. Women said he's an angel. They're seeing something special. So just for that, they said, you must be somebody special. Tell us what you think. Now comes an interesting part. All of Surah Yusuf is dedicated to Yusuf alayhi salam, about him. But there are conversations where he says a few things. For example, in the beginning he said to his father, oh my father, Ya Abati, I saw stars in the sun and moon doing sajda. One liner. When he is accused of this, he doesn't go into a long explanation. He says, she desired me. That's it. Everywhere where he talks, it's a one-liner. But now you have ayah after ayah after ayah, 4 ayahs of long conversation of what Yusuf alayhi salam said. This was said in prison to 2 prisoners. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His wisdom has made this a permanent record in Lawh Mahfuz and in the Quran to be read till the Day of Judgment. What did Yusuf say to the 2 prisoners? Isn't it amazing? So there must be something special about this. Now imagine on the Day of Judgment, Yusuf alayhi salam comes and he sees his conversation recorded on the Quran, completely word for word. What kind of honor that would be, right? So there is something special about all the things that happen. Now just take the scene. From one thing, you think things can get worse, they get worse. Can get worse, they get. Now he's thrown there with all injustice. Any normal person would have said, what? Ya Allah, what is this? Why me? What did I do? Did I keep going through this? No. He's asked, and he gives you what is inside him. He exposes what is in his heart. قال, he said, لا يأتيكما طعام ترزقانه إلا نبأتكما بتأويله قبل أن يأتيكما ذلكما مما علمني ربي إني تركت ملة قوم لا يؤمنون بالله وهم بالآخرة هم كافرون. He said, your food will not come to you. In other words, the prisoners would get a meal whenever. He said, before that meal, before that provision comes to you, I will tell you. Okay, he immediately didn't answer their dream. He said, I'll tell you. I'll tell you, and you won't have to wait long because the meal will come, but I will tell you what what is the interpretation before that food comes. And then he gives them da'wah. He is giving da'wah towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the prison. Now look at the methodology. So he said, yeah, you want that? I'll give you the answer. But let's have a small conversation. And it's not about, look what they did to me. Look what did this. Nothing of that. First he says, this is that which my Lord has taught me. What you see of goodness, that you think I can interpret this. He doesn't say, that's me. He says, this is the knowledge. This is a gift from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he acknowledges Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and shows shukr by acknowledging. One way of acknowledging, showing shukr, is to acknowledge something that this is from Allah. And then he starts his dawah by saying, indeed, I have abandoned the religion of a people, means the people of Egypt, that believe not in Allah. So he's not trashing their religion first. He says, I have abandoned what they believe in, and they are disbelievers in the hereafter. So he's indirectly saying, they don't believe in Allah, they don't believe in the hereafter, so I've left that religion. Okay? So it's not a direct attack against them. He's saying, in a way, that I have left this. And then he says, so where do I go? واتبعت ملة آباء إبراهيم وإسحاق ويعقوب ما كان لنا أن نشرك بالله من شيء ذلك من فضل الله علينا وعلى الناس ولكن أكثر الناس لا يشكرون. He says, what do? I have left that faith, the faith of the people. And he doesn't even say the people of Egypt. He said of a qawm. They're insignificant because they don't believe. He doesn't say, oh, the great nation of Egypt. He says, qawm. People. وَاتَّبَعْتُ, and I have followed مِلَّةَ آبَائِي, the religion of my father. Who? Ibrahim wa Ishaq wa Yaqub. Proudly claims that heritage. Now these people don't know who Ibrahim, Ishaq and Yaqub is. He doesn't care. But he's telling them that those are our people. مَا كَانَ, and how are we different? مَا كَانَ لَنَا أَن نُشْرِكَ بِاللَّهِ مِنْ شَيْءٍ. We are unique. It is not right for us that we could ever associate anything in partnership with Allah. This is how we are unique. So he is taking pride in his heritage and pride in the fact that we are people of Tawheed. We don't do shirk. That's our nobility. Not the pharaohs and the Hiskios and whoever the kings were, whatever they do, because people think that's noble. He is proudly saying, you want to know what nobility is? Nobility is my lineage, my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my father. This is why. What is our claim to fame? Even though you don't know, they were muwahhid. He didn't even say they were anbiya or rusul. He said their nobility was tawheed. It is not befitting for us to ever have any partnership with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And ذَلِكَ مِنْ فَضْلِ اللَّهِ, again he said, and this is from the grace of Allah, that He gave us tawheed. He didn't allow us to become mushrik. This is the fadl of Allah. Who's saying? Who is a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. This is the fadl of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah's grace upon us. And وَعَلَى النَّاسِ, and for mankind, means this grace is available to you, to all of mankind, if you want to take it. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ اللَّهِ, but the majority of people are not grateful. They don't take this great gift Allah is giving. They reject Tawheed. يَا صَاحِبَيَ السِّجْنِ أَأَرْبَابٌ مُتَفَرِّقُونَ خَيْرٌ أَمِ اللَّهُ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. Next, after that Tawheed, he presents an argument. He says, O my companions of the prison, أَرْبَابٌ مُفَرِّقُونَ, he said, are many different lords, arbab, better or Allah? Better or Allah? Al-Wahidul Qahhar, the one and irresistible. So, people have had multiple gods that they worship. You know, we have polytheists, we have people living in Indian subcontinents, the Greek mythology, the multiple gods, a god for this, god for this, god for that. He says, are multiple gods better, or lords, or one? The argument is, if you have multiple masters, or multiple bosses, or multiple lords, you cannot make them happy. Why? Because one says something else. If you make this one happy, the other is unhappy, and so on and so forth. If you take orders from many people, you don't know who you can make happy. You make one happy, the other is unhappy. So this is the argument he's saying. And when we talk about arbab, it's not just idols. Relevant to us is all the systems that we are exposed to. Capitalism, power, and dunya, and my own hawa, and this is the custom of our country, and this is politically correct. These are all systems, arbab. Anything that you give up and submit to that goes against Allah's order, you have taken as a Rabb, including yourself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and they have taken their own hawa as their Rabb, their own desires and inclination. So he says, who is better? And then he says, other than Allah, Al-Wahid, the one. The one. Somebody might argue, oh, you've got one God, we've got many gods. Many gods can overcome one, right? This is how we think, like human beings. The word Al-Wahid in the Quran occurs in 4 places. Every time Al-Wahid comes, it is attached to another word, name of Allah. Which is it? Al-Qahhar. Every time. Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar. Just because he is alone, don't think he can be overpowered. He is the irresistible. He overpowers everything. Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar. Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar. Always together. So this is what he says. So don't have any misconception because he is one that, okay, we are better off, we have many gods. Then he says, he takes it next level. So right now, he's not attacking their gods. He's just telling his own story and making an argument. But then he goes up next notch. Now he talks directly to them. This is his method of dawah. And this is what we learn. مَا تَعْبُدُونَ مِن دُونِهِ إِلَّا أَسْمَاءٍ سَمَّيْتُمُوهَا أَنْتُمْ وَآبَاؤُكُمْ. What you worship. Now he's telling those two people, what you worship other than Allah are nothing except names you have made up. They are false. You and your parents. Now he's even attacking the parents because frequently people say, this is what we found our parents doing and grandparents, right? We follow the religion of our parents. So they were also misguided. They were wrong and you are wrong. مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ بِهَا مِن سُلْطَانٍ. Allah has not authorized this. إِنَ الْحُكْمُ إِلَّا لِلَّهِ. There is only one authority, which is with hukm, with Allah. أَمَرَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. And He has commanded that you worship none other than Him. ذَلِكَ الدِّينُ الْقَيِّمُ. And this is the straight path. وَلَكِنَّ أَكْثَرَ النَّاسِ لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. But the majority of people do not know. So, in 4 ayahs, he gives a stratified, wise dawah towards the tawheed of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In prison, he takes this opportunity. And this is not unusual. Do you know where most of the conversions take place in our country here?
Prison.
In the prison. Because there's time to think.
No distraction.
So imagine somebody goes in for a crime they committed into prison and comes out as a Muslim. What a gift that prison sentence was. Look at things in a different way. SubhanAllah. And somebody else illegally gets rid of others and becomes the king. Palaces. Say, look how lucky. No, he's not. because Allah will disgrace a person like that. And Allah honors people like this. Then, after all of this, now he finally comes to interpretation of their dreams. He said, Ya sahibaya sijni, amma ahadukuma fayasqi rabbahu khamra, wa amma al-akhiru fayuslabu fatakulu at-tayru min ra'sihi. Qudiya al-amru alladhi fihi tastaftiyan. He said, O my companions, as for the one who saw the dream of pressing the wine, you will pour out wine to your Rabb, your master. You will be a servant of somebody big, and he became the servant of the king, serving him wine. And which means you will be saved. And then as for the other, he will be crucified. He will be sentenced to death because they were going to be tried. They were in prison for certain crimes. You will be tried and you will be crucified and hung up there, and the birds will eat. The vultures will come. Gave him a death sentence and told him that is how the case has been decided concerning what you asked. So one was given a death sentence, one was given, and that's what happened. Now, then he said to the one who he knew was going to live and serve his master, وَقَالَ لِلَّذِي ظَنَّ أَنَّهُ نَاجٍ مِّنْهُمَا اذْكُرْنِي عِنْدَ رَبِّكَ فَأَنْسَاهُ الشَّيْطَانُ ذِكْرَ رَبِّهِ فَلَبِثَ فِي السِّجْنِ بِضْعَ سِنِينَ. And he said to the one who he knew would be saved, mention me, mention my case in the presence of your master, because you're going to be serving somebody important. Mention why, so that they can look into this situation and know that I'm innocent and get me out. So tell them about my case. But Shaitan made him forget to mention Yusuf to his master. So he remained in prison for several years. Bid'a sinin, anywhere from like 3 to 9 year time frame, but this, historians say it's about 7 years he spent in prison, which is not a short time. So he used asbab. He said, mention it. And it is said that Shaitan made him forget. Till when? Till that time when the king sees the dream. Now some people have, because this can be read in different ways, have given another translation of this. They said, Shaitan made him forget, means made Yusuf forget his Lord, to mention it to his Lord, and therefore not ask his help, and so he remained in prison for 7 years. Allahu Alam, I prefer the first interpretation, because Yusuf alayhi salam's character is not one where he forgets Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay. Including Shaitan's attacks. So we have, in summary, a remarkable, composed young man who has been repeatedly traumatized and abandoned, enslaved, imprisoned for no fault of his, yet he makes use of his time in prison in giving da'wah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with wisdom, using a particular sequence, starting with gratitude of shukr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We have to remember always to be a shakir. Shukr and sabr, those are two things, and they are linked to each other. How is shukr linked to sabr? Anybody?
Sabr is a sign of gratitude.
Shukr leads to sabr. Why? Because if you're truly shakir, means you recognize all of the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and you know all the favors Allah has done. So when a difficult time comes, you said, Ya Allah, so many grace and favors on me, this will also pass. Right? So one leads into the other. So always may Allah make us among the shakirin. So the first thing in recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or when you're giving dawah to somebody, is remind them of the favors of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so they may become grateful. And the dawah starts with positive. We don't give dawah, okay, you're doing this, you're going to burn in Jahannam. That's not dawah. Okay. Tell them about the grace of Allah, His favors, His forgiveness, and all of that. Okay. Make them love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before you put the fear in them. Okay. Fear is necessary for some people. But positive reinforcement, need for gratitude. And then his negation of the people that were there, the favor of Tawheed, which we should think within ourselves, how grateful am I that Allah has made us muwahhid, people of Tawheed, and not people of Shirk. Through nothing that we did. Allah just gave it to us as a gift. And sometimes when the gift is given without any struggle, we don't have value for it. This is the greatest of all gifts. To be a person of Tawheed. To be, then on top of that, to be in the Ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Khairul Ummam, the best of nations. How grateful are we for that? I think I've covered most of the other points. So the last part here is that we must take advantage of whatever opportunity Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us and use your talent, your wisdom, and call people to Allah with a noble character, have a noble character, and care about people as he did. So inshallah, that's where we will end today's session. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us understand the lessons and to put them in our lives, and to open the hearing channels of our hearts to understand His words, and to teach those, first practice, and then to teach our children, and to show by our actions that we are people of the Quran. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.
Question.